I have a bit of a confession to make before we get into it today.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at my old hard drive last night, just prepping for this deep dive.
Uh-oh. That sounds slightly ominous.
Right. Well, I found this folder, and it was literally titled The Next Big Thing,
Oh, no. What was in it?
a complete graveyard of good intentions.
Yeah.
I mean, there were 3 chapters of a sci-fi novel that I started back in 2019.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a business plan for a gourmet coffee truck and a PDF for a marathon training schedule where I checked off exactly 4 days.
Let me guess. The first 4 days.
Exactly the first 4 days. And looking at that folder, it just hit me. I am a professional starter.
Ah, I think a lot of people feel that way.
I'm great at the launch, love the energy of day 1. But day 45, not so much. And I think so many of you listening can probably relate to that. We have this culture that just completely celebrates the start.
A ribbon cutting, the big announcement post online.
Exactly. But we rarely talk about the messy middle.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We are really tackling that specific psychological mechanism that separates the starters from the finishers.
And to do that, we're going back to the source. Honestly, maybe the ultimate source of modern success literature. We are opening up Napoleon Hill's 1938 classic Think and Grow Rich.
But we aren't trying to skim the whole book today. I mean, that would be totally impossible.
Right, there's just too much in there.
There is. So we are laser focusing on what I consider really the most painful, but maybe the most necessary section of the whole text. Chapter 9.
The chapter on persistence.
It doesn't sound very sexy, does it?
Huh, it really doesn't. Persistence sounds like, I don't know, something a gym teacher yells at you while you're failing to climb a rope.
Just grind it out.
Yeah, it feels like a chore. It feels like grinding. But reading this chapter, Hill frames it completely differently. He doesn't describe it as a chore at all. He actually describes it as a chemical element.
Right, that's the carbon analogy. This is really the core concept of the entire chapter. Hill writes that persistence is to the character of man what carbon is to steel.
I really want to unpack that because I think I completely missed the depth of it the first time I read it. I mean, I know basic chemistry. Iron is strong.
Right, iron is strong, but it's brittle. If you have a bar of pure iron and you put it under immense stress or like a sudden shock, it snaps, it just breaks.
Right.
But if you add a tiny percentage of carbon, just a fraction, it literally changes the crystalline structure of the metal.
Wow.
It becomes steel, it becomes flexible, it becomes unbreakable.
So the argument here is that talent, intelligence, and even desire, those are just iron. They are inherently brittle.
Exactly. You can be the absolute smartest person in the room. That's iron. You can have the best business idea in the world. Still iron. But without that hardening agent of persistence,
The carbon.
without it, the moment the market crashes or a critic laughs at you or you get rejected, snap, you break.
You end up with a folder of half-finished projects on your hard drive.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. But here's where I want to push back just a little bit. Because it feels like there is a very fine line between persistence and just being, stubborn or even delusional.
That's a totally valid point.
Because Hill talks a lot about Henry Ford in this chapter.
Yeah.
And when I look at Henry Ford, especially with the whole Model T situation, he doesn't just look persistent. He looks like a guy who absolutely refused to listen to anyone.
Well, Hill actually addresses this directly. He tells the story of the Model T, and you have to remember the context. Ford's engineers, his business partners, his own friends, they all hated the design.
All of them.
Pretty much. They called it ugly. They said the market wanted something completely different. They practically begged him to pivot.
In modern terms, they were telling him to iterate or fail fast.
Precisely. And Ford just refused. He continued to manufacture that specific car long after the smart money said to stop. Now, to your question, is that stubbornness or is that persistence?
Well, considering he belted the earth with dependable motor cars and became one of the richest men in history, we call it genius.
But if he had failed, we'd definitely call it stupidity.
Sure, that's the retrospective bias. We judge it by the outcome. But Hill argues there's an internal difference. Stubbornness is usually based on ego. It's that feeling of, I just want to be right.
Yeah.
Persistence, on the other hand, is based on what Hill calls definite purpose. Ford had a vision that was so clear to him, the opinions of others just didn't matter because they literally couldn't see what he saw.
He wasn't just digging his heels in to be difficult.
Right. He was following a map that only he could see. He combined willpower with a massive desire.
So persistence isn't just the act of not quitting. It's not quitting because you actually have a specific destination in mind.
Yes. And here is the exact definition Hill gives, which I just think is profound.
Hmm.
He says persistence is the sustained effort necessary to induce faith.
To induce faith. That's a really weird phrase. Usually we think you need faith before you start something. Like believe in yourself and then you can do it. Hill completely flips that. He says, realistically, when you start something new, you don't have full faith. You have a wish. You have a hope.
You don't know you can actually do it.
Exactly. The only way to build that concrete belief is to act. By persisting, you are essentially proving to your own subconscious that you are serious. You are inducing the faith through the physical, everyday act of showing up.
So the action creates the belief, not the other way around.
Exactly. You don't wait to feel confident to write the book. You write the book to become confident.
Oh, wow. That actually explains perfectly why my enthusiasm always dies after 2 weeks.
Right.
I haven't persisted long enough to induce the faith yet. I'm just running on the fumes of novelty, and when the novelty runs out, I've absolutely nothing left in the tank.
And that is exactly where the hidden guide comes in. This is the part of chapter 9 that feels almost, I don't know, almost mystical.
It really does. It feels like he's describing a video game boss.
In a way, he is. Look, Hill spent 25 years interviewing the most successful people in the world. Carnegie, Edison, Firestone. And he noticed a pattern that was so consistent across all of them, he felt it had to be a law of nature.
He calls it the hidden guide.
Yes. And the guide's job is basically to make your life miserable.
Huh. It really feels like that when you read it.
It does. Hill suggests that there is a force, you can call it life, the universe, the marketplace, whatever, whose duty is to test people. And the test is always exactly the same. Discouraging experiences.
It's the persistence test.
Correct. The rule seems to be that you are not allowed to achieve any major success without patching the persistence test. The hidden guide stands at the gate. It throws bad luck at you. It throws heavy criticism at you. It throws financial loss at you.
It's checking your credentials. Like, are you actually serious about this?
It is checking if you are steel or iron. Most people, when they hit that gate, they just turn around. They say, oh, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be.
Or they say the universe is giving them a sign to stop.
And Hill is practically screaming, no. The universe is asking, how badly do you actually want this?
That reframing is so powerful.
And for those who can take it, for those who pick themselves up after the defeat, they obviously get the prize. But Hill says they get something far more valuable than the prize itself. They get the knowledge that every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage.
The seed of an equivalent advantage. That is definitely one of the most famous lines in the book.
It means the failure itself gave you the exact tool or the lesson you needed to ultimately win. But you only ever find that seed if you stay in the game long enough to look for it.
Now, Hill uses a really visceral analogy to describe the feeling of not staying in the game, that feeling of being totally stuck. He calls it mental inertia, but he compares it to waking up in a nightmare.
The sleep paralysis analogy. This is terrifying, but so accurate.
I think everyone listening has had this happen at least once. You're asleep, you're having a nightmare, maybe something is chasing you in the dream, and you know you're dreaming, and you desperately want to wake up. You want to run.
But your body feels like lead. You're paralyzed.
It's a suffocating feeling. And Hill asks, how do you break that paralysis? You don't just jump out of bed. You physically can't do it.
No. You have to start incredibly small.
You have to focus all your willpower on moving just one finger. Specifically, he says, the little finger.
Then you move the hand, then the arm.
You win back control of your body inch by inch until snap, the spell just breaks and you're fully awake. Hill argues that when we are stuck in life, like when I'm staring at that half-written novel, I'm in that exact nightmare. I have mental inertia. And I'm just sitting there waiting for lightning to strike to make me move.
And Hill is saying, stop waiting for the lightning. Wiggle your pinky.
Yes.
Do one tiny persistent action, then do another. That is how you break the paralysis. You don't wait for motivation to arrive. You generate movement to break the inertia.
So let's look at some real-world case studies of people who wiggled that finger until they moved actual mountains. Hill loves his case studies. And in this chapter, he focuses heavily on Broadway.
The Great White Way. Hill had such a fascinating take on show business. He said Broadway is a brutal teacher. He noted that Broadway will gladly give a beggar a cup of coffee and a sandwich, basically for free.
Right.
But if you want the big stakes, the fame and the fortune Broadway fights you to the death.
And the hero of this particular section is a woman named Fannie Hurst. Now, I'll admit I had never heard of her before reading this chapter.
She was a literary giant back in the 1930s, actually one of the highest paid writers in America at the time. But her origin story is just Pure distilled persistence. She came to New York in 1915 with this massive, burning desire to write. And for 4 years,
Total silence.
4 years of the word no.
Well, 4 years is such a long time to get rejected.
She was literally pounding the pavement, submitting stories, visiting editors, getting turned away. She worked days just to pay her bills and wrote all night. Hill says she worked days and hoped nights.
Most people give up after, 4 emails that don't get a reply? She went 4 entire years. But she had this very specific attitude. Hill quotes her mindset, and she didn't say, well, Broadway, you win.
Right. She said, very well, Broadway, you may whip some, but not me. I'm going to force you to give up.
She personified the city. She treated Broadway like it was a sentient opponent in a wrestling match.
She did. And eventually, the hidden guide decided she passed the test, she broke through, she sold one story, then she sold another, and then she wrote a novel called Great Laughter.
And what happened?
Right in the middle of the Great Depression, she made $100,000 from that one book.
Which is millions in today's money. It's unbelievable. But Hill makes a really crucial point here. She was the exact same writer the day before she sold the book as she was the day after. Her talent hadn't magically changed overnight.
Not at all.
The only variable was that she simply outlasted the rejection. And he contrasts her story with someone like Kate Smith.
A famous singer, yeah.
Right. And Hill says Kate Smith basically sang for nothing for years. She just kept showing up. But then he drops this really dark, kind of haunting observation. He says there were likely thousands of singers who were actually better than Kate Smith walking the streets of New York at that exact same time.
That is easily the scariest part of the chapter. We really like to believe that talent always rises to the top, that if you're just good enough, you'll naturally make it.
Meritocracy.
Exactly. But Hill says no. Talent without persistence walks the streets. The world is absolutely full of educated derelicts and talented failures. The ones who ultimately win are the ones who can simply take it.
But what about the excuse of age? Because I hear this one all the time. People say, well, I'm 45, I missed my window, or I'm 60, it's just too late to start a new business now.
Hill brings up W.C. Fields and Marie Dressler to completely destroy that excuse.
W.C. Fields, the comedian. I always picture him as this, grumpy old successful guy.
He was, but people forget his timeline. He was a huge star in vaudeville, but then vaudeville died. And then the Great Depression hit. He lost absolutely everything.
Wow.
He was past 60 years old. He had no money, no job. And to top it all off, he fell and injured his neck severely.
That's usually where the biography ends. The tragic ending, he died in poverty.
Exactly. But Fields persisted. He realized vaudeville was gone, so he completely pivoted to this new thing called talking pictures. Movies.
And he had to start over.
He worked for free at first just to get on a set. He reinvented himself completely at age 60 and staged one of the greatest comebacks in Hollywood history.
And Marie Dressler was a similar story, right?
Very similar. Down and out at 60, totally written off by the industry. But she used that same carbon of persistence to triumph and win an Academy Award.
It's incredible. But it really begs the question, if the rewards are so insanely high, if persistence turns you into steel and gets you the millions or the Oscar, why is it so rare? Why do we quit?
Hill gives us a diagnostic list. He calls them the symptoms of lack of persistence.
I read through this list. I'm not going to lie, I felt personally attacked.
It's a harsh mirror to look into, isn't it?
It really is. The first one is straightforward enough. Procrastination. But he notes that it's usually backed by alibis.
Because we never just say, I'm being lazy. We say, oh, the timing isn't quite right. Or I need to do more research before I start.
Right.
Hill calls those alibis. They are just lies we tell ourselves to justify our own lack of persistence.
Then there's indecision, the habit of passing the buck. Because if I don't actually decide, then I can't technically fail. Or self-satisfaction, which he says there's little remedy for. If you're smug, you're stuck.
Correct. But the biggest enemy, the absolute boss villain of this entire chapter, isn't laziness. It isn't even indecision. It's the fear of criticism.
This one hit hard. Hill says this fear kills more dreams than a lack of money ever could.
Think about it. Why do we hesitate to set really high goals? Why do you hesitate to launch that podcast or start writing that book? It's because we are terrified of what our friends, our family, and our neighbors are going to say.
Oh, look who thinks they're an expert now. Don't aim so high, you're crazy.
Exactly. And Hill actually gets really vulnerable here. He admits that he almost didn't write Think and Grow Rich because of this exact fear.
Wait, really? The guy writing the ultimate book on confidence was afraid of what people would think.
He was terrified. Andrew Carnegie gave him this massive assignment to organize the philosophy of success. It was a 20-year unpaid project.
20 years unpaid.
Right. And Hill's first reaction wasn't excitement. He thought, what will people say? I have no money. I have no social standing. People are going to think I'm completely delusional. What do I know about philosophy?
And if he had actually listened to that fear, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation today.
Exactly. He calls the fear of criticism soul-crushing. He talks about how countless people literally destroy their own lives in the name of duty.
Duty.
They stay in miserable jobs or bad relationships because they are afraid of the criticism they would face if they broke free.
She implies that duty is also just a fancy word for submission, doesn't he?
He absolutely does. He says your first duty is to your own definite purpose. If you fear the laughter of others, you will never persist long enough to turn that laughter into applause.
Okay, so we know the problem. We are iron, not steel. We are desperately afraid of criticism. We are totally prone to mental inertia. How do we fix it? Does Hill give us an actual prescription?
He does. And the beauty of it is that he explicitly states persistence is a state of mind, so it can be cultivated.
You aren't just born with it.
No, you build it. He gives us a very specific 4-step formula.
And I love how he prefaces this part. He says you don't need a PhD. You don't need unusually high intelligence or some special education. You just need to decide to follow these 4 steps. Let's walk through them slowly, because this is really the core actionable takeaway for you listening.
Okay, step 1. A definite purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment.
We've used that phrase burning desire a few times today. Can we distinguish that from just, wanting something?
A want is passive. It's like saying, I'd like to be rich or I'd like to get in shape.
It's casual.
Right. A burning desire is an obsession. It's definitive. You have to know exactly what you want. Vagueness completely kills persistence. You cannot persist toward a fuzzy target.
Got it. Okay. Step 2. A definite plan expressed in continuous action.
The absolute keywords there are continuous action. Notice he does not say a perfect plan.
That is such a huge distinction,
Right.
because I usually wait until the plan is completely foolproof before I even take the first step.
And that is exactly why you don't finish things. Hill explicitly says that even if your plan is weak, the physical act of following it continuously builds the habit of persistence. You can always fix the plan later,
Right.
but you cannot fix a habit of stopping. This goes right back to the finger-wiggling analogy. You just have to keep moving.
Make a plan, act on it daily. Okay, step 3. Now, this one is a bit controversial, or at least it goes against a lot of modern advice. A closed mind.
This sounds very counterintuitive because today we are always told to have an open mind. We should always listen to feedback and be receptive, right?
Right. If I have a closed mind, aren't I just being arrogant or ignorant?
Hill means closed to something very specific. You must close your mind tightly against all negative and discouraging influences. This is your shield against that fear of criticism we talked about.
So when your brother-in-law says that business idea is stupid, or when you read the news and it says the economy is terrible, don't start a business right now. You just don't listen.
You mentally block it out. You have to. If you leave your mind open to their doubts, your persistence will just leak out.
It drains your battery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to protect your mental state as if it were a bank vault. You don't let just anyone walk off the street and dump their trash on the floor of your vault.
I love that. So step 3 is defense, block the haters. Then step 4 is offense, a friendly alliance.
This is the famous concept of the mastermind. Now, in Hill's world, a mastermind isn't just one really smart mentor. It's an alliance.
A group.
Right? A group of one or more people who are completely aligned with your purpose and who actively encourage you to follow through.
So it's the exact opposite of step 3. You close your mind entirely to the negative people, and you open it completely to the friendly alliance.
Exactly. Because persistence is incredibly hard to maintain in a total vacuum. We are social creatures. When your own battery runs low, and it absolutely will run low, you need to be plugged into a group.
Even if it's just one other person.
Yes. Someone who looks at you and says, you can do this. Keep going.
It's like having a spotter at the gym. You can physically lift more weight with a spotter standing over you than you can alone, just because you know they are there.
That's a perfect analogy. The friendly alliance is your persistence spotter.
So let's quickly recap the formula for everyone. 1, know exactly what you want. That's the burning desire. 2, have a plan and move on it every single day, even if the plan isn't perfect. Continuous action. 3, ignore the naysayer's closed mind. And 4, get a support team-friendly alliance.
It is remarkably simple. But as Hill says, these 4 steps are exactly what separate the Henry Fords and the Fannie Hursts from the millions of people who just drift aimlessly through life.
What I find so empowering about Chapter 9 is that it totally takes the mystery out of success.
Mm.
We look at highly successful people, and we tend to think they are magicians.
Or we think they just got a lucky break.
Exactly. Or we think they are genetically wired differently from us, that they literally don't feel fear or doubt.
Right. But Hill is saying, no, they absolutely feel the fear. They just have a cultivated state of mind. They turn their iron into steel through this exact 4-step process.
And the most important takeaway for me today is the timing of it all. Hill mentions this incredible paradox. Success often comes just after the point where most people quit.
That's the hidden guide testing you one last time.
Yes, it's devastating to think about how many people stopped digging when they were 3 feet from the gold. They took the rejection, they endured the criticism, and they quit right before the tide actually turned.
Persistence is simply the refusal to let that quitting point dictate your destiny.
And remember W.C. Fields. He was down and out, he was injured, and he was over 60. He didn't sit around waiting for a break. As Hill says, the only break you can actually rely on is a self-made break.
And you make that break by persisting until the world simply has no choice but to give you what you want.
So here's something to think about as you go about your week. We talked about step 4, the friendly alliance. Hill suggests that if you lack persistence yourself right now, if you feel like your battery is weak, you can actually borrow persistence from others.
That is such a powerful thought to leave on. You don't have to generate all the power internally.
Exactly. So look at the people around you today. Who is in your corner? Are the people you talk to every day helping you persist? Are they adding carbon to your steel? Or are they the ones feeding your fear of criticism?
Are they the reason you're closing your mind?
Who you allow into your alliance might just determine whether you snap out of the nightmare or whether you stay paralyzed in bed. Start wiggling that little finger, everyone. Get moving. Thanks for listening to this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.